The Talksport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the Talksport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search Talksport Fan Network.
Hello, Cherries fans, and welcome back to Up the Cherries in all departments. Tonight we've got a special interview for you once again, but I'm privileged to welcome back in our friend from the channel, Jonny, who's going to be conducting the interview with me tonight. Jonny, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, pretty good. Good to be back on. As you can see, I've switched my Cherries shirt for a Northern Ireland shirt tonight. But yeah, I mean, it's because possibly today's guest has a little bit of a link to both.
Certainly does.
So yeah, today, it's a bit of an interesting one because we get a lot of, obvious people coming onto the podcast, down the last few podcasts. If you've watched them, you'll see, a lot of ex-players, as well as the music podcasts we've had. And a lot of them are maybe household names or well-known names, especially in Dorset. Today, we're going to bring in a real character of the game, a bit of a journeyman, and actually a gentleman who has been capped for two different countries at different levels, whether you want to say is full level, under 21s, under 18s, and who's also travelled around a bit and even scored a goal in Brazil. So I think it's time for us to find out who this gentleman is, who is ex-AFC Bournemouth player, ended up being capped by Northern Ireland at a certain level, and also a Channel Islander. So a little bit of a link to Guernsey and Jersey, but actually from Guernsey. So today we will be introducing a gentleman with the name of Zico in his name, and he is going to be Ryan-Zico Black.
Hello, Ryan. Welcome to the show.
How you doing? Okay?
Yeah, all good, buddy. All good. Thanks for joining us. First question's probably quite an obvious one, and you've probably been asked it 1,000 times, but why Zico in your name?
It was my dad, really. So I was born in 1981 with a great Brazilian side with Zico, and my dad's Irish, but he loved Brazil. And he loved Zico. So he just wanted me to be called Zico, but my mum said, well, what if he doesn't like football? Let's put Ryan first and then hyphen Zico. So that was that's what I was christened with, my first name.
Yeah, it's a great story. So is it actually a double-barreled Christian name?
Yeah, double-barreled. Yeah, double-barreled.
Oh yeah, because these days we got a lot of these footballers that are like Hudson-Odoi. They're like double-barreled surnames. So it's cool to have the double barrel in the first name. Although when you were at school, Ryan-Zico or Zico, did you ever feel that like dropping the Zico moniker and just being like Ryan Black? Was that ever a thing? Or you thought, no, the Zico's cool? How did it work when you were at school growing up?
Yeah, I felt, because obviously I love football from the moment I could kick a ball. So everyone called me Zico anyway, really. There wasn't.
Oh yeah, okay.
Some people call me Ryan, but not many. Most people call me Zico.
And school teachers?
Yeah, well, I was kind of, because I did love the name as well, so I would tend to call myself Zico, or add Ryan Zico in. So yeah, it was a cool name.
So with your name obviously linked to Brazil, did you watch Brazil and Northern Ireland, Guernsey when you were growing up?
Yeah, I mean, all the videos I used to watch with my dad, especially after he'd had a few beers, would be definitely Brazil. So I think it was the Boys from Brazil video. Must have watched that about 1 million times. And George Best videos. He loved George Best. So it was George Best and Brazilian football, Pelé, and all the greats there. But grew up just watching them over and over. He's a Celtic fan as well. So Jinky Johnson, the winger.
Yeah.
Watch a lot of him and all the old stuff, really. But I loved it. Diego Maradona as well. I watched a lot of him as well.
So obviously Brazil, Zico, growing up, great side in the 70s, 80s, always a great side to watch. Any other club teams or anything that you followed? From Guernsey, were you watching TV every week with the football? Which teams were you supporting, sort of growing up?
Yeah, well, my dad used to get me a lot of kits, football kits.
Oh, yeah.
So it kind of I must have supported a lot of teams, to be honest. I love Southampton because Matt Letizia at that time. But I wore that many kits, so I got confused which team to support, to be honest with you. Obviously, liked United with Best, and so I followed them for a little bit. But I didn't really have a team, in all honesty. And then obviously when I went to Bournemouth, then I followed Bournemouth. They were in the lower leagues then. But yeah, didn't really have a team.
And tell us a wee bit about your dad's background. I mean, I grew up in Bangor, just down the road from Belfast. My dad's from Belfast. And yeah, we all think George Best is like a hero for everyone back home. What about your dad's background? Was he playing football? What was he up to when he lived in Belfast before he moved away?
Well, he moved to Guernsey young, with all the troubles and stuff. So he found a job there. So he must have been in Guernsey from about, I think he was 18 or 19 when he left. I mean, he has got an interesting story himself. He played for a team called Star of the Sea, which was the first mixed Catholic Protestant team. In that, so it's a really famous football team that they had. There's been documentaries and stuff from there. So he loved football, and I think that was his thing there, where the troubles were going on and stuff. Football was the thing that kind of connected, friends, and they just loved it. So he was always big with football. When my mum's a nurse, so my mum did her training in Southampton. So when he went over he moved over with her. When she was young and doing her training, and he played for a couple of teams around there. He played for Eastleigh and a couple of decent, would have been amateur teams back then. So he was a good player, really skillful and good goal scorer. But I'd like to have a drink in that as well. So I don't think he had quite the dedication then to knuckle down and be a footballer, but he was good. I remember watching him play. But there's a lot of Irish here over in Guernsey, and a lot came around a similar time.
So Bournemouth then, how did you end up coming to AFC Bournemouth during your youth days?
So I was at when my dad was at Southampton. He got friendly with Chris Nicholl there. I think he was the manager at the time, and I managed to get into the kind of School of Excellence, as it was called then. From about 10, 11, 12, I was at Southampton going back and forth. And then there was a scout at Southampton who moved to Bournemouth, and that was around about the time I could sign schoolboy forms, which would be like it's all academy now, but it would be schoolboy forms then. So at 14, I went to Bournemouth and did well, and signed on. So I was there for 2 years.
Just during that time there, who was your coaches in the academy at the time? Well, the School of Excellence
at Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Sean O'Driscoll was the main one.
Oh.
Yeah, so he was a really good coach, to be fair. Sean, so he was the main coach that I can remember. I can't really remember any of the others, but he was the one. He was the one when I went back last. Was like the kind of, I think I would have been about nearly 16, so I did really well up until my last kind of training there. And I shouldn't. I mean, everyone's got a sub story, but I shouldn't have probably gone at the time because I had an ear infection, and Sean wasn't the quietest of. I wasn't the loudest of talkers, and he's quite softly spoken with me. But I went for about 3 weeks, but I was terrible in that last 3 weeks. I was training with the youth team as well as I was training up with the under-18s. And like I said, I'd done really, really well before then, scoring goals, and was really involved. And it was kind of like going in a good trajectory to a YTS. But I really struggled in those 3 weeks. It was tough.
And at that time, then, Zico, who were the players that you were playing with, and even against? Like, obviously, you played some youth team matches. Who were the players you were with that we might know?
Yeah, I'm trying to look back. I think remember James Hayter. I think was one.
Oh, right.
Maybe a year above. I remember him. There was a couple of other lads that I came across later on in sort of non-league. Jenkins brothers, were they?
Jamie Jenkins.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jamie and Jody. I think they're both. Jody might be the
brothers. I think. Yeah.
David Wells. Remember him? The keeper, was he?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Dave Wells. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't really remember loads, but that off the top of my head, that's who I remember them. But they had. So I think it must have been League Two then? Would it have been?
Yeah, Division 4 and Division 3, mixing it between.
Yeah.
What year are we talking here, Zico? Just out of interest, roughly, is it sort of late 90s, like 97, 96, something like that?
Yeah, maybe mid 90s.
94,
95, 96. Yeah, 94, 95. Yeah.
So we'd have been in the Division 2 then.
Yeah,
Division 2.
It was about that time with going into administration and stuff. It was all around that time. And I think being from Guernsey, I think it's a little bit more costlier with getting, if I'd assigned flights and things like that. So I think it was a bit of if players were similar or there wasn't much in it, you'd probably find clubs would go for more of a local player than someone who lives, a flight away. But I loved it at Bournemouth. I had a really good time. Went to the Isle of Wight, played over there, and played against some decent teams in the youth as well. So it was a good experience. Just difficult at the end. It was a hard one to swallow at 16 when you get released. I was absolutely devastated. So I didn't know what I was going to do. I was back in Guernsey. And like I say, because I'd been doing well up till then, I remember at one point I played for Guernsey against Jersey and scored a hat-trick, and there was a Leeds United scout there who wanted me to go up to Leeds, and we spoke to Bournemouth and said, can I go up, sort of thing. And they were like, they didn't want me to go up and trial or leave or whatever. But the tables can turn pretty quick in football, as you know.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, I can't imagine what it must be like being, taken into the office to find out, whether you're staying on or being released. It must be devastating. Can we just go through how many countries you've actually represented at international level at various different stages? Yeah,
well, I've so for Guernsey, I've represented Guernsey at every level, from under 11s up to seniors, so senior cap and island games. So I played in 4 or 5 World Island games where they have each year, and then Northern Ireland. I played. Was capped under 18s and under 21s. Under 18s, I was capped in Ukraine, and 21s in Northern Ireland.
Okay. In terms of players that that you've played with at various different levels, has there been any that have sort of gone on and made it pretty big within the game that you've played with at various different levels?
Yeah, I mean, when I left, when I got released at Bournemouth, and I ended up at Morecambe, and it was kind of the start of like a non-league academies. Pro clubs have always had like youth systems, and then a national league team started then kind of thinking, we could maybe get some gems that have been released. So we were quite a lot of rejects, really. We'd have been releasing them all over. Gary Thompson was in ours, who did well. He ended up at championship clubs. David Perkins, who I think is now at Exeter, he was in our academy. So John Hardaker got a move to Stockport, who were in the championship at the time. So, and quite a few of us played National League and stuff. So, in terms of players, I think it's probably quite a lot. It's hard to sort of pinpoint. Obviously, at Northern Ireland, like Chris Beard went on to have a solid career, didn't he? He was in that group with Fulham and Southampton and whatnot. So there's been quite a few that I played with and against. I mean, the non-league, and there's so many good players that have played that drop down. 1 minute they're playing for Liverpool and winning the FA Youth Cup. The next season they're in the National League or lower. It's all ups and downs, isn't it? So I've come across some really good players and played with and against top players.
Earlier, Zico, you dropped in the name of an incredible footballer, Matt Letizia. Obviously, to say that on a Cherries channel here, I need to have a lot of respect for a player that good, yeah. But some of the goals he was scoring in the Premier League, goal of the months. Everyone knows who Matt Letizia is if you're a football fan. Have you met him? Have you played with him? What's he like? What's your opinion on Matt?
Yeah, I think he was definitely one of my favourite players growing up. When I went to Southampton as a kid, he made the time to come and see me and speak to me. And my dad coached him when he was younger at Valrec, one of his clubs. And the family are a lovely family. Parents, brothers. His brothers very. One of his brothers was my coach at Valrec, Carl, who was a lovely guy. And his other brother, Mark, was very involved in Guernsey FC at the start when it started. So, yeah, Matt's a decent guy. And obviously he was unbelievably talented, wasn't he?
Yeah, just on the brothers thing, his other brother, Kevin, probably you know Kevin as well, do you?
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt with a wee story here, but I arrived at Guernsey Airport one day and my bag was missing, right? So I had to quickly get a taxi back to where I was staying, which was in St. Martin's. And I just walking down the street, I just pulled over a taxi and I got in and I'm telling this taxi driver about my story. Oh, they've lost my bag. And this guy's like, oh, don't worry, mate. Don't worry about that. I'll drop you off and I'll pop back to the airport and we'll check it all out. And then I started talking about football to him. I said, oh, I tell you what, this Guernsey, that's where Matt Letizia is from. He goes, yeah, that's my brother. And I went, all right, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was great when I was in Guernsey. I loved it. And about an hour later, after I had a pint in the bar, Kevin Letizia comes back and he's got my backpack from the airport. It came on the next flight. Yeah, he'd got it for me. And I was like, whoa. So yeah, nice little link there to the Letizia family.
Yeah. Well, Kevin was, he's, local legend here in his own right, as one of the best goal scorers Guernsey's ever had. So he had interest from clubs when he was, younger, and he decided to stay for whatever reasons, but he was a top talent as well. And like you said, a decent guy.
So another face from Guernsey, Brett Pittman. Have you ever come across Brett or played against Brett? Or because for Bournemouth, obviously he was quite a prolific goal scorer when he was playing for us. Have you ever come across Brett?
Yeah, I've come across Brett. I forget which year he's in. I might have even played against him.
Is he Jersey or Guernsey though?
He's from Jersey.
Jersey.
Yeah, he had a great career, didn't he? He did really well. Yeah, I've come across him and said hello and stuff, and I followed his journey like with football, and he done really well.
And what about I know we'll speak about Morecambe in a bit because I know that was a great time for you, playing for Morecambe at the end of the 90s, start of the current century. But how did it come about getting into Northern Ireland under 18s and under 21s? Was that a phone call or was it your dad told him about you, or how did that actually come about? How did we know that we could have a guy from Guernsey? What was the story of that?
Yeah, a couple of links really. So yeah, a little bit with my dad to start with in terms of like a bit of to helping hand to let them know that there's a player, but it was more Matt Spence, who was Derek Spence's son.
I know of Derek, yeah.
As well. And my dad knew Derek, and obviously Derek was I was playing the same team as Matt, So we both and the other link was Jim Harvey was was a manager at Morecambe, and he was the academy coach. He was a brilliant coach and a great man. We'd have done run through brick walls for Jim in our academy. But he was also a link there. So it was just a case of getting our foot in the door to have a trial and then show what we can do. And we went to Lilleshall, and I think I scored 2 in 3 games and did really well. So I didn't actually get in straight. I was on standby for the Milk Cup, but then I got a chance, and once I got in the squad, I never really left the squad then. And then I got all the way up to I was in the squad once for a B international game. It was a Sammy McElroy's testimonial game. So I was at that time.
Was that Stockport? Macclesfield.
Yeah.
Macclesfield, was it?
Macclesfield,
yeah. So you met Jimmy Quinn, the other Jimmy Quinn, James Quinn. You'd have met.
That
was the team around, and Warren Feeney would have been about.
Yeah, well, I was in the squad with Warren, definitely at least once. I remember Warren did really well as well. He was I think he must have been at Leeds at the time, was he?
It might have been just before he joined us, because he came. We had him on loan originally. Yeah, I think he was Leeds with Hasselbank and Fowler and all that. But with Northern Ireland, how many caps did you actually get, Ryan? Is there a debate about that? Like, because under 16, under 18, under 21s, what were the actual levels?
I think it was about 2 in the 18s and 2 in the 21s altogether.
All right. Yeah.
I was a lot of substitute appearances as well. I went to Spain with the 21s, and that was with a great Spanish team as well, Torres and Arteta. All them. And we only lost 1-0. That was a own goal. But I didn't get on that game, unfortunately. But it was still a good experience to be there.
Yeah. Sometimes when I reflect on football in those days, like, we only would have 2 or 3 subs, but now, as you see, Zico, you get 5 subs now. So if that was today, you'd be getting on at some point. And it's the way it is. I think COVID changed that. I think the 5 subs rule sort of came in around COVID time, which is, players have more of a chance now, I think, than in your day. If you're going to Spain to sit on the bench, it's not really fair, actually,
Yeah, that's the way it was, wasn't it? I think there are more opportunities now. I think it's a good thing that you can use 5 subs, because
5 subs, yeah.
There's nothing worse than traveling and not getting on, as any player will say. But like I say, it was all good experiences, and it was good squads. I mean, often I was the only player outside of the Football League that was in the Northern Ireland squad, and I managed to get a start against Germany at Windsor Park. And I had the only thing I didn't do was score, but apart from that, I had a really good game. So that was a great moment for me, and I wasn't too far away from kind of getting back in the program after that. But I'd say it's ups and downs, and
So you were at Morecambe at that time, yeah?
I was at Morecambe at that time under contract. There was we had a goalkeeper who was at West Brom, and West Brom showed some interest afterwards and wanted me to go down training with them. It was about a week after that game, but I think because I've had so many knockbacks as a sort of getting to that point and trialing and going trials, not getting in, it sort of put me off a little bit. And whereas now I was kind of, you think, well, what the hell was I thinking? Just go. But at the time I was kind of like, well, if they're that keen, then they'll sign me without me going down for a trial or train.
So you just touched on Morecambe a little bit there. Can you tell us about your time at Morecambe? I believe you were there from 1999 to 2003. Is that right? Yeah.
So we were I went on trial there, and then got in the academy, and then I loved it at Morecambe. Great place, great people, and great support up there. It's it's not a massive fan base, but it's a really good fan base and town. And I ended up getting in the first team at 17, and then I went on to make sort of like close to 100 appearances there. We had some good FA Cup runs. Played in the FA Cup third round against Ipswich when they were doing really well in the Premier League.
Right.
So I started in that, and we played Ipswich twice actually. A couple of years later, that was a third round game as well.
Was it Portman Road or at home?
What the first one that I played in was at home, and then I was on the bench at Portman Road for the second one. We came semi-finals in the trophy, and we were very close to getting out of the league. We were runners up to Yeovil, and we were by far the second best team in the league, but we got beat by Dagenham in the playoffs. Yeah. So it's good. Very close, isn't it? You come second by quite some far, and then you end up not going into the league. Yeah.
I mean, we know what it's like because Bournemouth, as you know, have been up and down all our life, topsy-turvy. But, I mean, we just about stayed up in 2009. And then there were a few times where we just missed the playoffs or we were in there and thereabouts. So I know how it feels like when... But Morecambe, of course, came up, later and had a good run in the Football League, didn't they? Probably you followed them, Zico, at that point.
Yeah.
You showed the results, yeah?
Yeah. They did well. I mean, they did go up, and I think they went up to League One, didn't they? And then came back down. I'm actually going over for the New Year's Day game. I've been invited over to watch that, so that'd be good. Good to see some old faces.
Yeah, I mean, we played them a few times on our journeys with the Cherries. We had a big win away there, Matt, didn't we? Didn't we beat them?
Yeah, I think if I remember rightly as well, we had a big defeat up there as well.
Oh yeah, I try to mention the good ones, but you're right, there was.
Yeah. The defeat sticks in my mind. I think we had a goalkeeper on there from West Ham or somewhere. I forget the keeper's name, and he had an absolute nightmare. I think it was 4-0. I think it was 4-0.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But then after we got promoted, we did go back up there and we did win
we did win convincingly up there, yeah. But just the time I was up there, trust us to get hammered 4-0.
On the seaside, there's a lot of clubs up there like Fleetwood and Blackpool. And Stockport, it's a decent wee part of the world actually. I
remember just come to my head there, Ali Santos. Do you remember him from Jersey?
I don't. Do you, Matt?
Ali Santos.
He was a winger. He was a good player in Jersey, but he came. I'm pretty sure it was Bournemouth.
The name rings a bell.
They signed him on like a 6-week contract, and he came on one game and he got brought sub back off again in the same game.
Oh, what year was that?
What would that have been?
Mid-90s?
Yeah, 90s, mid 90s.
Yeah, I have to say that's a good one.
Mid to late 90s. Yeah.
I'm going to
we'll check that out, man.
I'm going to do some research on that one because that name rings a bell. Ali Santos, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll let you carry on.
He was a good player.
I've got another question for you, actually. So basically, Zico, obviously you played in Morecambe, had a great time there, and then somehow in life you ended up at Glenavon. Now, before we go to talk about playing Irish League, but Glenavon were the first club from Northern Ireland ever to play in the Champions League, actually, the European Cup, because when it started in the 50s, in like Real Madrid were winning it every year, they asked obviously every football association in Europe, do you want to enter this? And I think England and Scotland at one point didn't enter a club, but Glenavon were actually the first club from anywhere in Ireland to enter that. Obviously, our team lost in the first round of it, but so you ended up playing for Glenavon. So what was that like? Quite a historic club. What was your time in Lurgan like? Glenavon, Craigavon? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I was out of contract at the time. I'd taken, when I left Morecambe, released from Morecambe, I went to Northwich briefly, and things were, I was back in Guernsey, and I was like, careers are done. And I was only about 23, 24. And then Jim Harvey called me out of the blue, and he said, what are you doing? And I said, nothing. He said, well, do you fancy going and playing in in the Irish League. And I was like, yeah, sound. So Jim had played for Glenavon, I think, once upon a time. And he said, look, they're a good club. You'd be well looked after there. So, and it's a chance for you to get back in the game. So I was like, great. So about a week later, a few days later, I left and went up to Glenavon. And I've been playing locally, but obviously the pace is a lot different. And fitness wasn't brilliant. So the first game I played, I started, and I was terrible. I remember ringing home saying, I'm completely done. And
was it at Morecambe Park? What stadium was that in?
It was away. I think it was against I think Dungannon. It could have been against.
That wee ground, Stangmore Park. Yeah, I've been to that one.
I'm pretty sure it was.
It's a tight wee ground, you know.
Yeah, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was. And my parents were just like, look, if you want to come home, but you know, it might be worth just playing another game. Anyway, I stuck it out, and the next game I scored, and I had a really good time there. My first month, I think I got a couple of goals. I was player of the month, my first or second month. But before a game, I got awarded with a player of the month trophy. 20 minutes in, I got sent off, and I got about 5 game ban.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So that didn't. But I came back, and Glenavon was struggling. They were well at the bottom at the time. We had a couple of good wins. Would be Cliftonville. Cliftonville were near the bottom then as well. But they ended up getting relegated, and they asked me to go back and play Division 1. But I was kind of like, well, the Premier League's physical, let alone going down to Division 1. So I was like, I decided not to, but I love the club. The people were great. In Lurgan, I was with like a host family a lot of the time. And they were lovely people. And all the players were really friendly as well. We had some good laughs, some good nights out. Met Ben Heath there and Seamus Heath. Who really looked after us, and I've stayed in touch with Ben since.
Obviously Glenavon, nice wee stint there, go over the Irish League, play a bit there, get sent off, score a goal or whatever, and then back to England. Was that what happened then? You ended up back in an English team. Where did you go after? Because you've been at quite a lot of English clubs, I gather. Where did you go after Glenavon?
After Glenavon, I went to Lancaster City. The conference North and South had just come into play. So the way it used to be, like the Southern Premier and the Unibond Premier. Now there was a Conference North and a Conference South. So when Lancaster were in the Conference North, I trained with them in pre-season. I went to a couple of clubs pre-season, but mainly Lancaster. But I got myself really, really fit, and I knew I had to do something. So I ended up having a good time at Lancaster. I had a good season. I was leading goal scorer. I scored about 20 odd goals in the Conference North then. So I was kind of kick-started me a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know what division Lancaster City are in or what their stadium is. What's the stadium called?
The Giant Axe, it's called. It's right near the train station. You sort of can see it as you're going up the train up. If you were heading up to kind of Scotland way, you can see it. It's a little stadium there, yeah. Only small, but again, it was Morecambe and Lancaster are really close. So a lot of ex-Morecambe players end up playing for Lancaster and vice versa. Back then, they did anyway.
Yeah, I think that part of England has so many, historic clubs. You've got Blackpool, Preston, Burnley, Blackburn. They're all in that sort of Lancashire sort of area, isn't it? Anyway, I was going to ask about Kettering Town, because Matt, you know about this stat about Kettering, don't you?
If it's the one I think you're going to be saying, yeah. Is it got to do with the FA Cup?
Yeah. So you tell the stat, and then we can ask Zico about that.
The stat is that Kettering Town have scored more goals in the FA Cup than any other club. That's the stat, I believe. Jonny, is it?
It's exactly correct. And, obviously it's based, I think it's based on round 1 to the final. And I believe the second most goals is scored by Tottenham Hotspur.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, Zico, did you know about that, about Kettering's famous stat?
No, I didn't know. Didn't know that.
Yeah. But I've heard that Tottenham are only about 10 goals away from beating it. So Kettering really need to kind of keep staying in the FA Cup until at least the third round to keep scoring goals, to keep the record up. So obviously Kettering, let's move on and talk about that. Zico, what about Kettering? How did that end up? And I believe there's a famous player involved here, right?
Yeah, well, that was, so after I had that good season at Lancaster, the season after, I remember, because I actually lived in the stadium at Lancaster, that was part of my deal. So I'd be on my contract, and then I had a free accommodation. Basically, I had a little flat right next to the bar, next to the clubhouse. So, I used to live there, so it's brilliant. Absolutely.
Don't
brilliant.
tell George Best about that.
That was probably the best deal I ever had.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was sat there watching Sky Sports with my dad and seen that Gazza had signed had become manager of Kettering. And we were like, I was saying to him, I was like, imagine playing for him. I loved Gazza. He's brilliant and such character. And anyway, I think it was the same night or the following day, I had a phone call saying, we've accepted, an offer from Kettering. And I thought it was one of the lads on the wind up, So sure enough, they said, "Can you come down that night?" So I ended up going down and then, signing, meeting Gazza. And he was like, I remember doing a medical, and he came in and gave me a kiss, and he was like, "Welcome to New Kids on the Block." He was, this is crazy. Yeah. So I ended up signing a 3-year contract there. It was a full-time contract as well. Yeah, 50 full-time contract. So, but yeah, seeing him, I mean, they could have offered me anything. I'd have signed for him because I loved him.
What about the attendances? Because for me to watch Gazza, obviously from the sidelines, and Zico on the pitch, Gazza and Zico in the same stadium at the same time, was there a lot of fans turning up at Kettering Town in those days, or what? Do you remember much about the attendances?
Yeah, our attendances were pretty. I mean, it was a couple of thousand on watching at the home games, so it was good crowd. They were quite well supported for that level as well. I mean, they were a National League club previously, and they were aiming to get out. But we were signing players from some good players, good non-league players, or sort of just dropped out of the football league, or coming from big clubs that have come out of like under 21s, 23s. So they were proper going for it at the time. But it was weird because they had obviously Kevin Wilson was manager beforehand, and a lot of the players were Kevin's
the Northern
players.
Irish Kevin Wilson.
Yeah,
is that the Northern Irish international? Yeah,
he was
Chelsea.
That's right. Yeah. So it was funny because we all came in, and there were still the players that were there under Kevin, and it was at first it was cliquey. Once I got to know them and they kind of accepted me there, it was good. But it was quite a difficult place to go into for sure. We were all on like probably more money, full-time contracts. They were on part-time. Strange situation. But I'm glad. Obviously, it didn't work out for anyone really. But it was a brilliant experience to meet Gazza and be play under him for a short time.
Can I just ask about his coaching style quickly? Because obviously we all know Gazza as the iconic player. I mean, I'm from the age of remembering Euro '96 and that iconic goal against Scotland, and he's one of my favourite England players of all time. So, but what was he like as like a coach on the training pitch?
Yeah, I mean, he had Paul Davis was with him at the time next Arsenal.
Oh yeah.
I remember. Yeah. I think I remember Paul doing more and Gazza sort of doing more of the sort of like one-to-one stuff, and he was more of the manager. But I mean, his talks before a game and that were really good. I mean, everyone was pumped. Everyone knew what they were supposed to be doing. Obviously, no one could do it as well as what him and Paul Davis probably wanted us to do or expected. But yeah, he was good. He spoke well. He did speak really well. Both of them were brilliant, really. But obviously, it didn't last very long. Coaching wise, I'd say Paul probably did most of it. Paul Davis did more of the coaching.
Matt, you can ask the big question. It's the big one, isn't it? You know that question.
The big one. Yes, I've lost track where we were, to be honest. Oh no, I know where we are. I know where we are. Yes, sorry. We've got to ask it. I'm hoping I'm going to pronounce it right. The Maracana. So you've played at the Maracana, but not only played there, but you've also scored there. How did that come about, playing there? I mean, that's a 70,000 odd capacity stadium, isn't it, that one?
Yeah. So it first came about. I wrote an autobiography when I was about 25, thinking just had this idea, and then I thought nothing would come of it. But anyway, there's in Brazil they love stories where like you're named after a famous Brazilian, and Globo TV, which is like Sky Sports is for us. They made contact with me. They were coming to England, and they said they'd heard about it through that book. They'd seen like the name, with the link, and they said, "Can we come to Guernsey and meet you and do a documentary?" So they came. I thought that was a wind up, because I thought, well, how is that even possible that would happen? So I didn't really. I don't think they even took any time off work or anything. I was like, if a miracle happens, they turn up. They turn up. But anyway, sure enough, they did. There's about 5 of them, and they filmed for about 2 or 3 days. And then at the end of the filming, they watched me do all sorts like coaching and all sorts of stuff. At the end of it, they showed me a video from Zico, and he was signing a shirt, and then he was asking me to go out and play in his charity game at the Maracanã. So it was, and that's how it happened, really. So I was actually. Pardon?
Did you call your dad immediately? Because imagine his reaction to that.
Yeah. Well, he was in the documentary and stuff, so they were interviewing him as well. And it was all in Portuguese. The documentary. It's on YouTube. But so that was amazing. And then the game was actually in Sao Paulo, the first game. But I broke my leg just before going back, just before I was supposed to go. So I did my tibia and fibula playing for Guernsey FC in an FA Vars game in England. So I couldn't go, and I thought it was touch and go whether I could get back, because I was about 35 playing then as well. But I did manage to get back, and then obviously went out to the Maracanã, and that was ended up playing in that and then scoring. So it was dream come true, really. Something I always wondered about, being named after Zico. Would I ever get the chance to meet him? And I guess I had lots of dreams, when I was younger, thinking, that could happen. It's possible. And then for it to finally happen, it was like, wow, this is surreal.
What was it like? I've written down earlier. I did a bit of research into the other Zico. Forgive me, the Brazilian guy. I've got a fact about him to come. But what was it like meeting him? Was it quite surreal, or did you say, "Hi, Zico, I'm Zico," and he said, "Oh, hi, I'm also Zico"? What was that interaction like? Does he speak English? I mean, does he speak Portuguese?
He does not loads though. He didn't speak loads, but he did. There was a moment on the pitch. I think it was after I scored, and we're on the halfway line, and he gave me a hug and a kiss on the cheek. Sort of said, "Glad you came." It was really, really nice. Really lovely moment, and I was just sort of, honoured to have, his name in my name, really. So his son was great, who kind of set it up as well, Junior. But it was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great story. I'm going to sort of, with the international vibe on here, I'm going to skip to Spain, because I read a little bit, Zico, about your kind of trying to play football in Spain and seeing what it's like. Obviously, a lot hotter, the climate there. Um, what actually happened there? Did you go from the English playing in England to trying to find a job in Spain as a footballer? How did that come about? And I read something about San Fulgencio, this club. Is that correct?
Yeah, San Fulgencio, one of the ex-players for Morecambe, a guy called Gary Williams, he actually got a big move at Doncaster at one point, which was big at that time. But he was the coach at San Fulgencio, and he got in touch and said, "Did I fancy coming out and playing there?" So it's right at the bottom of Spanish football.
What division are we talking here?
So it's like regional sort of one or something like that. So you've obviously got La Liga, and you've got Segunda B, Tercera, and then you've got regional. So it's like fifth, sixth, or something like that. But it was it was interesting. He spoke pretty good Spanish, and most of the lads there were Spanish, and I wanted to learn it as well. And I spent a bit of time studying the language, so it was really good for that. And the football it wasn't. I think because it was lower down, it was fairly physical. To be fair, I thought it would be all sort of just passing and technical, getting on the ball, but it was it was quite interesting.
There's actually a unique group of about, I think it's 5 or 6 Northern Irish players that have actually played in Spain. So Gary Armstrong, obviously, massive one from the 80s, played for Real Mallorca. And then you, and we've had a few others sort of on the fringe of the Northern Ireland side that have gone out there. And obviously the big English players that were there, Owen and Beckham and McManaman and that. Matt, should we do a bit of international? Because there's that Guernsey one as well, isn't there?
The Guernsey one. Yeah, it's about the matches in Guernsey, wasn't it?
Yeah, but internationally, maybe the Marathi Vaz. Zico,
that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just because I'll be honest, I've watched loads of Northern Ireland matches. I've been to the World Cup and the Euros to watch other international teams, but I don't know a lot about the Guernsey international team, not the Guernsey FC, obviously the kind of Marathi Vaz and all that. How does that work? And how many caps have you got for Guernsey at whatever level it is? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've got quite a few caps. I don't know how many. I don't really count, but I know I played in about 4 or 5 World Island games. So that's like every island, most of the islands in the world come together, and there's all different kinds of sports, and football's big on them. So, and then we've had the Marathi is Guernsey versus Jersey. So it's the biggest game of the year. Everyone from both islands follows. Everything stops, and everyone's involved in it. So it's quite a big
derby. Is it a
big derby? Big derby,
yeah.
Guernsey generally. So there's a lot of banter between the two. I think years ago, maybe even still now a little bit, Guernsey sort of hate Jersey, Jersey hate Guernsey kind of thing when it comes to the football. So it's a really big game, few thousand at the game. And yeah, it goes down in history, really. People talk about ex-Guernsey Marathi players, Jersey Marathi winners and goal scorers. So it gets talked about for many years. People still talk about it. You hear them talk about past players and clubs and stuff.
I'm just thinking there, if you're the Guernsey player and you scored the 1-0 winner against Jersey, people will be jumping on you for weeks. You'll get free beer in the bar probably.
It's a really old trophy as well. It's one of the oldest trophies around. The Marathi Vase. I actually joint managed the Guernsey side last year. We got beat to Jersey, but that was kind of a good honour.
And do they rotate the stadium then? So one year it's in Jersey, the next year it's in Guernsey.
Yeah, and there's always a semi-final against Alderney as well.
Yeah.
So I think Alderney have got to the final once in like 100 years or something.
Actually, I've been to Alderney, and it's quite funny because I was researching that as well. I think they won it in 1921, and they haven't, or something like that, and they haven't been in the final since, or something.
Yeah.
So,
but when you go over there, though, it's like, when we went last year, it was like storms, and I think it was 0-0 at half time. So you're thinking, right, it's going to be typical that it's going to be on you when you lose that one game. So everyone, it's more nerve wracking than the final, really, because you don't want to be that one time where they get through.
But I think the rule must be you have to be from Guernsey to play for Guernsey, right? You can't just get someone in and say, this guy's from Guernsey, can you? Is it quite strict that you have to be from there?
Yeah, all relatives you can. Yeah. And I think if you're here for a certain amount of years, you can also play for a certain amount of length of time. Yeah.
And what about Matt Letizia and Graham Lasso? Do they go to those matches and do they hate each other? Because I know Graham Lasso's Jersey and Letizier's Guernsey. Do they have this like banter as well going on?
Yeah, they would have. I'm pretty sure at some point. And they would have definitely watched or kept an eye out for the scores on that game. Because that's where they're from.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned about the autobiography or the book. Tell us a bit more about that. Tell us the name of it, where we can buy it. We've got a lot of people listening, hopefully, that are interested in your story. And I mean, it's a great story, Zico, anyway, with the name. But tell us about the book.
Yeah. So I was reading a lot of autobiographies at the time, and I love them. But it's all success stories, and a lot of footballers don't make it to that far, or they nearly get there. So they've got a story to tell, and I guess I felt I had a story to tell in my journey. People might be interested in. So I just started writing for months, and then I typed it up myself, got self-published, and then put it out there. Really. So it's I could have probably made it a bit better, to be honest, if I had a bit of help when I did it, but I just kind of went on what I thought at the time and just went for it. So yeah, it's quite a while ago now, but that's kind of available still on like Amazon and Author House. I went through at the time, company that I went through.
The title of the book is Zico. What is it? The non-league Zico, or what's the exact title again?
Zico, an autobiography of a non-league footballer. Yeah,
cool.
And just sort of where journey, because coming from Guernsey and playing the level I did was a good achievement in itself. Even though I didn't play, the heights of Premier League or league football. I played against a lot of Premier League teams and a lot of Football League teams, and so and there's lots of people like me that have mixed it against top players, but didn't quite make it themselves. To a really high level. And I think it was just about that, really. And you might not have the kind of success and kind of money that the top players have, but you can still make a good career, have good experiences, see the world, meet lots of good people, and I think for anyone who is wanting to be a footballer, go for it, and then you never know where you might end up. Some make it, some don't, but it's always worth going for it, I think.
Yeah. In terms of positional play, obviously you've mentioned a lot about scoring goals. That's the dream of a footballer, is to score goals. But I believe you're quite a versatile player. You've played midfield, up front, wing. What's your favorite position? Where do you think you played best in your career? What was your main position?
I think looking back, if I had a chance to, when I was younger, I think I'd played deeper centre midfield, because I think that's probably where, when I came back to Guernsey and played for Guernsey FC, be it at a lower level, but I do think I'd have probably done a bit better in centre midfield, because I've got pretty, I've always had good technique, whichever club I've been at, or even when I've been playing, with players that are at a higher level for Northern Ireland, and I never really looked out of place technically. There's probably other elements of the game, so I think a centre midfield would have CDM, holding ball playing. So yeah.
I have another random little stat that I like to throw in, because people love to talk about United and City and Town. But Zico, you've played for United, you've played for City, and you've played for Town. It may not be Manchester, Leicester, and Ipswich, but in your career, you can say to people, "Oh, I've scored in the Maracana, and I've played for United, City, and Town." Who are the United, City, and Town that you've played for them? What are those clubs?
United. Rosendale United. Rosendale United. Played a little bit for them.
Yeah.
Lancaster City and Kettering Town.
Yeah. Nice little, I like this sort of different to the usual. People always, because I hate it when the other day was at West Ham were playing Man U and everyone's going United, United, United. Well, West Ham is also United,
Out of all the clubs you've played for, which one was the most enjoyable to play for?
I think tough one probably between Morecambe and Lancaster, because Morecambe gave me a chance. That was the first time really a club had said, "We want you," as at that stage, at 16, 17. And so, and then playing in the first team and the crowd really, supporters really sort of taken to me, and I was part of the community and stuff. So that's hard to beat really. But Lancaster was also a special time because, played over 100 games there, kind of played a lot of good games, and nice people up there as well. And we had some good times. So probably those two clubs. Obviously Guernsey FC was great as well. Playing for my home club, and how it started and how we were, I thought I was going to stop playing, to be honest, when I came back, but it just kick-started. I had another 10 years of playing.
Mm-hmm. What was the best moment of your career? Is it scoring in the Maracana, or is it playing for Guernsey or Northern Ireland, or is it breaking into Morecambe or being signed by Gazza? What is your favorite moment that you tell people from all of that long career?
Well, I mean, the biggest buzz probably, the Maracanã, because 60, 70,000 people there, and scoring a goal was probably the biggest buzz. But I think the proudest moment, although that was a proud moment, playing for Northern Ireland at Windsor Park and wearing I think it was number 10 shirt that I had on. That's when I felt like, right, I've earned this, and I've got a real chance here. And I was just like, my family, my dad, that was playing against Germany. It was like amazing. So that was a hard one that's probably my best moment, where I felt brilliant, about football, and felt like I was doing well.
And to move in, obviously, when your career ends, it's a sad sort of time, I guess, for a lot of footballers when that ends. When was the moment that you knew that you had to retire from playing, like, at that level? And what did you decide to move into? What industry did you decide to move into? So just tell us a little bit about how you ended your playing days and what you do now, basically.
Yeah, ended my playing days. So when I left Spain, I thought, I'm going to have to get a job, because I'm coming to 30 and I can't keep just dossing around getting a couple €100 for playing in the Spanish 100th division. So, and I'd missed home. I'd missed my family and parents. I spent 14 years away from home, and I thought it's about time I go back. And Guernsey does have a pull on you, I think, being around the sea, and so I was missing home a bit. And then when I came back, Guernsey FC started. So I played for, like I say, I played a couple 100 games there. I played for about 10 years. I even played last year a few games.
Okay,
42. So I'm not long, really. I've not kind of fully got my boots.
You still haven't retired, right? You never stop. You never lose it.
But at the moment, I started my own coaching academy, Zico Football Coaching Academy. Last year. It's been going a year now, and I've just found recently my legs, it's quite tiring on the body. So I'm doing like, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 miles a day, just moving around. And obviously risk of being injured, and not being able to I do one-to-one sessions, private sessions, group sessions. So I need quite a lot of energy and longevity in doing that. So that's probably why I'll stop playing. I think so. When I came back, I went into social care. I did my coaching badges in England when I was part-time, and I enjoyed it. I did a bit of coaching in Northern Ireland, did a coaching in Lancaster, Morecambe. And then when I came back, I tried to start up my business, and I was 30 at the time, but I don't think I had quite the knowledge, confidence, and belief that I could actually make it happen. I give it a go I went around the schools, handed out my details, but I'd never really pushed it. So I went into residential care as a support worker because I wanted to do something that I thought I'd be good at, that I'd enjoy, and help people. And that's what I went into. I ended up being a manager in an area there. I did 10 years there. Did a social work degree. Did all management qualifications, VQs. So I made up for a lot of missed classes when I was younger. I think hardly went to school, and then I ended up studying for the last 10 years and ended up doing a degree. But then last year, I think after COVID, it was quite a stressful time. I was just working nonstop when that was happening, and it was tough doing a degree at the same time. So I then had some time off and thought, right, it just came to me what I felt like I had to do, and that was start with football coaching and do what I know best and what I've studied all my life, and what I love doing. So I just quit my job. We just bought a house, and houses aren't cheap in Guernsey, as you probably imagine. Got 2 kids, so it was a big gamble. But I felt like I had to do it, and it was a good decision because we've done really well. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's all brilliant. What we'll do, Matt, obviously we'll stick the links to your book and the coaching that you do in Guernsey. We'll stick that in. And if anyone out there wants to check it out, who knows, you might have a up and coming Cherry. The next AFC Bournemouth player could be from Guernsey. It could be you. So yeah, get involved. I mean, it's great to have kids, getting involved in the game for fitness, for sport, passion and camaraderie, teamwork. I love it,
Yeah, well, obviously Alex being there as well now, the link, to Guernsey is
Scott. Yeah,
big. Alex's dad, granddad's a good friend of my dad's, is Irish as well. So he's a hero from now. In Guernsey, kids really look up to him, and Maya Letitia,
Premier League player, right? So
yeah. So I think what he's done and what Maya Letitia has done is just giving people in Guernsey and belief, that they could maybe do it one day as well.
Yeah, for sure. Now, to be a wee bit lighthearted here, just a few random questions to fire at you, Zico. You can pick one player to have on your team. Is it the Brazilian Zico? Is it George Best? Or is it Lionel Messi? You can only pick one.
George Best.
Yeah, good choice. That's what I'd have chosen. Matt, who would you have chosen?
Yeah, Bestie.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There we go. But then again, he did play for AFC Bournemouth as well. He was at the Cherries at the end of his career.
Yeah,
yeah. Okay. On that subject, Guinness or lager, Zico, or abstaining from alcohol? Guinness or lager? What would you choose?
Guinness in the winter, lager in the summer.
Fair answer, yeah. And another one, Oasis or Blur?
Oasis.
Okay, and what's your favorite Oasis song on that?
I do like Songbird, actually.
Yeah.
Fair play. Yeah. Nice choice. Right. Back to football a little bit. Who is the best player you played with? So they were on your team. Who's the best player you played with your whole career?
So it's hard to pick one, really, to be honest.
You can pick a few.
Yeah. Best player. Stuart Drummond was very good at Morecambe. Centre
Right.
midfielder. He was about 6'4", good with his feet, could do most things. He was a top player that I played with there. In Guernsey, there's a lad called Ross Allen, striker, who probably should have gone higher when he was younger if he'd have got away. I think he scored about nearly 300 goals for them.
Right.
So he was very good. And obviously the ones in Brazil, although they're a little bit older, a little bit past their prime, there's some top players there. Romario playing in that one.
So was Romario on the same pitch as you at one point?
Yeah, Romario was. Yeah.
Oh wow!
On the same team or the other team?
I think he was on our team. Was he on our team? No, it might have been against him actually. Yeah,
because that was my next question. Who's the best player you've played against?
Yeah.
Who's the best player you played against?
Got it. Yeah, I'm trying to think who else with. Really, there's been so many. It's hard to keep track. I probably will do at some point. Kind of just look back a little bit. Be quite interesting.
Yeah. Okay. We'll kind of a few last questions to close. One is, do you still watch some of the Northern Ireland games? Do you have any message for Northern Ireland fans? Because as a Northern Ireland fan, we sort of wanted you to be there and get into the team, and we could sing a song about Zico. We're not Brazil, we're Northern Ireland. Do you still follow us? Do you think we might get to a major tournament at some point?
Yeah, I still follow. I still want them to do really well, and I think that's the hope, isn't it, to get to a major tournament? You know, got great support, and it'd be absolutely brilliant to see him there. I think it might take a bit of time, might it? The fans are always loyal there, though, aren't they? You know, they always kind of back.
Win, lose, or draw. Normally lose, yeah.
Normally lose.
It is what it is as a Northern Ireland fan.
What's your message to young footballers in the Channel Islands?
Messages to if they've got a dream of being a professional footballer, then there's a lot of hard work and there's a lot of ups and downs with it. I think the biggest part of football is probably psychologically, really, that mental strength and self-belief, which can be lost when you have a few knocks. I think that's the biggest part, having that resilience to really, the players that end up doing really well are the ones which have really big self-belief and tremendous resilience, and they aim really high as well. They don't settle for a League Two player or National League or Championship. They believe they're going to play at the top, and that's why they end up playing at the top. So having that self-belief and dreaming big, I think.
Lovely. Yeah, great answer. Jonny, do you want to wrap up with the last one, mate?
Yeah, I was just going to say, obviously Cherries, we're Premier League now. We've got a really great manager, Andoni Iraola, has done wonders for us. We thought Eddie Howe was our pinnacle. Any message for the Cherries fans? Would you like to come back to Dean Court at some point and maybe see how it's all progressed from your days, in the 90s? Anything to say to the Cherries fans, Zico?
Yeah, just really pleased for them, really, that they're in that position that they're in now, because I remember when it was really dark times for the club and the administration and what was going to happen. So to see Bournemouth in the Premier League now is like fantastic, and it's a beautiful place, and good people and a great club. So I'm just pleased that they're there, and hope it all continues. And like you say, it looks like they've got a brilliant manager there, great squad, and I'm just looking forward to seeing how far they can go, and I hope it continues.
Yeah,
and I'd love to go. I'd love to come over. That's the aim. Obviously, with Alex being there, getting over to watch him would be really good, and to see that would be amazing. So we'll definitely be doing that in the new year.
Excellent. Yes, definitely different. Have you been to the stadium since they rebuilt it, Zico?
No, I do remember it though. I do remember Dean Court and watching games. I think Russell Beardsmore, remember him playing?
Yeah, Russell Beardsmore, yeah.
Manchester United,
Totally.
wasn't he?
Yeah. No, some good.
Fletcher as well, big Fletcher. He was a
Yeah,
coach on the coaching board, wasn't he?
yeah. He's I think he's had
Striker.
every role at the club since he's retired, apart from Tea Lady. I think he's
Is
done a
it?
bit of everything over there. But yeah, well, it's been great to hear your story, Zico, and learn about you. I mean, me and Jonny love doing these kind of interviews with players that have had, different types of careers and journeys and stories. So it's been really great to have you on, and thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah. Again,
Yeah, thank you.
brilliant, and love the story. Just think it's brilliant. Zico scores in a Maracana, dream come true. Like, what we would give to have that career of scoring and when playing with Zico, the other Zico. Yeah. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you. No, it's been good, been fun. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, cheers. Thank you very much.
All the best.
Ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the Talksport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search Talksport Fan Network.